Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Empowering Futures, Legal Insights for Nonprofit Sustainability and Personal Planning. My name is Leah Boston. I'm an estate planning attorney licensed to practice law here in the state of Maryland. I founded Law Office of Leah Boston here in Maryland after a growing passion to legally help those preserve their hard work and legacies. My community has a long history, Kyara's as well. Our community has a long history of losing its wealth or not understanding the process in which to go about sustaining and preserving it. Estate planning was the perfect area of law to best suit my interests in the legal field. And my firm's mission is to educate nationally and provide quality hands-on services to Maryland residents. And I do this by developing relationships with my clients and providing the best fit estate plan that is unique to each individual. Because for me, estate planning is a unique experience, and not every estate plan or client shares the same vision or even requires the same estate plan. So here with me today, as I stated earlier, is Kyara Ofuani, and she's going to talk to us about properly establishing your nonprofit.
Hi, everyone. I am Kyara Ofuani, a nonprofit attorney with the Ofuani Legal Group, also known as the Legally Black Law Firm. I got into nonprofit efforts when I was very young. My mom had a nonprofit called Sisters Empowering Sisters and Brothers Reaching Out. And so at a very young age, I learned how to grant write and just the necessity of funds when you're working on causes and advocacy and things like that. And so as I grew, I just always loved doing community projects, finding ways to help other groups get funding. And so I ended up getting my master's in nonprofit management and working with groups that way. And so when I decided to pursue law, I figured, okay, actually there's a need for nonprofit law. Before I was a lawyer, I didn't even know that there was a such thing as nonprofit law. I just thought, you do your nonprofit on the side and then you do your law separately. But I realized that it's something that I can combine the two. And so that's kind of where we started with the nonprofit legal side of it. With my firm, we like to help organizations in the Black community where we see that there's a big wealth gap when we're trying to advocate for our causes. A lot of people have to do volunteerism or have it be a hobby instead of having it be their actual mission that they can do every day and then also fund their family through it. So I just try to help people find the proper legal structure for that and funding so that they can make their mission and their passion a thing that they do 24/7 and not just a hobby. Let's dive right into properly establishing your nonprofit. So first, I want to highlight that proper estate planning for individuals and families is super essential for creating legacy for your loved ones. Establishing a nonprofit in the Black community is also an immense benefit to our wealth as we are providing basic resources for those who may not have it. And then also we're able to just bring highlights to social issues and fulfilling our missions through strategic planning, business, and things of that nature. When we're thinking about the steps that are required to have a nonprofit organization, legality is one of the first things that we should think about. Sometimes people automatically think into the volunteerism portion, or they're just, let me get this cause together, let me get my friends and go out there and do it. And that's amazing. These are things that we can just do off rip, but we do have to, as a community, look at the value of having a legal establishment and making sure that we're doing things the right way. So some things that you should know when you are starting your nonprofit organization is first, your business structure. So there are many ways that you can start your business structure, but the most common way is having a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. So whether you knew this or not, a nonprofit organization is ran similarly as a business, as a regular business. All the different functions like having a budget, having an EIN and things like that, those are all the same. The difference is that you are working not for a profit. You're focused on a mission or a cause. And so your entire organization is driven towards that mission, opposed to maybe a self-gain when it comes to profiting and things like that. To be a 501c3 organization, all you have to do is fill out your forms with your Secretary of State for certain exempt purposes. But one thing that people also may not know is if you are a church or a synagogue and you're holding meetings in that capacity, the state will automatically note you as a charitable organization. So if you are a church, yes, you should get your legal structure, but if you're already holding church, you're already having a synagogue and things like that, the state already recognizes you as such. Another thing that people should consider when they're starting their nonprofit is legal counsel. So legal counsel plays a crucial role in nonprofit governance, fundraising laws, and grant laws. Making sure that you have the right legal support group will make sure that you are navigating the complexities of your nonprofit organization. And there are many different things that you can use legal for, not only just establishing your 501c3, but when it comes to fundraising. So for example, you can't take fundraising donations from certain politicians if they're running for office, for example. There are different laws that may have a conflict of interest based upon the policies that they're doing and things like that. But sometimes people don't know that there are restrictions when you're working with political leaders and trying to receive donor funds. So something like that may be information that you could get from your legal support. Another thing that organizations may want to look into are copyright. So for example, if you are a wildlife organization and you're taking pictures of animals and you want to publish this, or you want to put it in articles, you may want to do copyright protection things with the photographer. Speak with them about if they have rights to the work that you're going to use on their behalf. So there are many different legal avenues that can go within your nonprofit organization, and it's best to work with a legal support team to make sure that you guys are protected all the way around. Another thing that I believe is very important for nonprofit organizations is to fulfill your mission. So when you establish yourself as a 501c3 organization, you are obligating yourself to be mission driven. If you are doing things outside of your operating agreement, out of your bylaws, your constitution, out of whatever your mission is, you are opening yourself up to legal implications, because at this point you have established yourself to get tax write-offs, to potentially get money from donors, potentially get grant funding or things of that nature. And all of these things are occurring because you have held yourself out to be for a certain mission. So if you start to go out of that mission, there are just some different breaches that you may encounter when it comes to that. So it's always good to make sure that you are fulfilling the mission that you said that you're going to serve. And if you're going to raise money for a particular program, making sure that you are actually staying in compliance and using those dollars for that program. That's very, very important. Back to business formation. So one thing I forgot to mention when we were doing our business formation is that there are multiple ways to get both your federal and your state status. So when you first form a 501c3 organization, you can be recognized federally as a nonprofit. And so when you're filing your taxes, if someone was to look you up on Sam's Gov, your name would pop up. But because there are federal taxes and state taxes, you also need to be recognized in your state. So that's something that I found that nonprofits may not know. Sometimes they'll do one or the other, but it's always best practices to do both. So one thing that you should look out for is a form that's called 1023. And this is a IRS form that makes sure that you are getting your tax exempt status within your state. So look out for that. Make sure that you have your establishment with with the federal government, also with the state. And like I said before, if you are a synagogue, a temple, a mosque, something to that nature, they'll consider you as a bona fide church. It's still good to get your actual forms, but in the meantime, if you're operating as that, you can still make sure that you are saying that you're a nonprofit organization. The next thing that I want to bring up when it comes to making sure that you're establishing yourself properly is fundraising and grant sustainability. So the legal framework for grants and fundraisers, like I was mentioning before, can be very tricky when it comes to who you can receive funds from and what you can do with those funds. It's great to get donors, it's great to get grants, but there are restrictions that come with those type of funding. So there's private funding and there's public funding. A lot of times the private funding is most favorable in my opinion, because there's generally less restrictions. If you have an individual that's just giving you $100,000, they're generally just giving it to you because they have this endowment fund from their family and they just want to give it to your cause, and they're telling you to do whatever you want to do with that funding. But sometimes there is a government or a federal grant that's $100,000 where there are restrictions with that grant of what you can do with the money. And you have to stay in compliance with that because there are legal liabilities that can happen, or audits and things of that nature if you don't follow the compliance that the government gave you when they gave you the money. Best to always make sure that you look to legal counsel when you're receiving any type of funds, whether it's fundraising funds, grant funds, and things of that nature, and look up the fundraising and grant laws that are in your state. I'll just recap to make sure that you guys are following along with me. So to make sure that your nonprofit is properly established, you want to start with your business structure. That's federal and state. You're going to look out for your 501c3 tax exemption, and you're going to also look at your 1023 form. Next thing that you want to do is make sure that you have a legal support team to make sure that your business structure is in compliance and that they're able to help you with fundraising and grant laws. Next thing that you want to make sure is that you're fulfilling your mission and that you're driven with whatever program that you said that you were going to do when you first formed your organization. Lastly, I want to just reiterate that building a strong legal foundation for your nonprofit will make a significant impact on how you have longevity, how people donate to you, and just the overall stability of your nonprofit. So thank you guys for listening to ways that you can make sure that your nonprofit is in legal, is in a good legal structure and is established properly, and make sure that you are still keeping up with your nonprofit, keeping up with your estate planning so that we can make sure that we prosper in the Black community. I'll pass it over to Leah, who's gonna now talk about ways of charitable giving and how that plays into estate planning.
Thank you so much, Kyra. That was wonderful. We're going to go into the estate planning side of things. For charitable giving, but also for personal planning. So, nonprofits and charity organizations, they're great tools for the estate planning process and can be extremely beneficial for some. The disclaimer though, I always advise consulting an estate planning attorney or a tax professional to delve deeper into your options when deciding to set up charitable trusts. So charitable trusts are very, I would say they're tax efficient ways to use your assets to provide for your family as well as charities. Generally, your charitable trusts are eligible for income tax deductions, hence why I say it's generally wise to consult an attorney and or a tax professional like a certified public accountant to go over how these tax deductions can benefit you legally and ethically. So there's something called an estate tax, and charitable trusts can actually help reduce estate taxes since the assets that are transferred to the charitable trust are no longer part of the individual's tax estate. So I know I said a mouthful, so we're going to break it down just a little bit. So, what exactly is an estate tax? An estate tax is a tax that is imposed on the net value of a deceased person's estate before distribution to the beneficiaries. So, the IRS is going to define this as a tax on your right to transfer property at your death. Most individuals don't really have a taxable estate. And just to show an example, this is pulled from the IRS. In 2023, the IRS stated that the threshold for a taxable estate was $12,920,000. So this is probably due to inflation, but they raised it again, are raising it again in 2024. It's risen to 13,610,000. Federal is usually higher, so I would still check with your state to see what the estate tax is. I know here in Maryland, the first $5 million of your estate is not taxed. And like I said, this is still pretty high for a lot of people, but it is still drastically lower than the federal exemptions.